Great. And thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone who is joining us today. My name is Marco Patricio. And essentially, what I do and have done for many years now is help businesses just like yours connect with and convert more customers. And increasingly in the digital age, what that means is coming up with strategies for social media. Now, if you have been on social media, or if you haven't been on social media, but at least have been in the business world, you've probably noticed that what is happening in social media is changing dramatically. This is always the case, but it's especially the case now, where the platforms that we use are so different, how we use those platforms are so different, and our ability to be successful on those platforms has really changed over the last 2 to 3 years. It's actually completely become something entirely new. And so one of the questions that businesses that I work with ask me most often is, what should I be doing on social media? And that can be a point of anxiety, especially for small local businesses, probably like yours. That can be a point of anxiety because you feel like you're missing out on a big opportunity. And so today, I'm going to go through some strategies that really do work, what you should be thinking about, and also what you shouldn't be thinking about to try and relieve some of that stress that you might have around social media, about what you should be doing on it. So, social media in 2022, as we're saying, it is different. But what is the landscape like? There's bigger audiences than ever. We all know that. It's amazing, but the audience sizes are still increasing on social media. So there's still more and more people coming online every day. And where they're coming online is in social media. There's more competition than ever, which is maybe not a great point for us because social media used to be this extremely democratic place where everyone had equal opportunity, and now as a small business it can really feel like it's harder to get a foothold and almost like we're too late to the game, which definitely isn't true. It's more ubiquitous than ever. That is a big word. I don't like using big words, but the reality of that word means that it's just everywhere. Everyone is on social media. So much of our own consumption, I know my consumption, and probably if you look in your household at your internet consumption, so much of that happens on social media, happens on, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever platforms we're using. An interesting part about that is that it's more segmented than ever. So if you are in a multi-generational household, or you have kids, or you have younger siblings, or you have older siblings or parents, or whatever it might be, you might have noticed that the kind of social media that you're using, what you would refer to as social media, depends entirely on what demographic you're in, what age group you're in, and what niche you're in. So this can all make it very complicated to know what we should be doing, especially entering into social media as a new business if we haven't done it before. But even if you are on social media now and are sort of stuck wondering what to do, or if your existing strategies aren't working, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you actual tips, actual strategies that you can use that are going to help you be successful in this environment, and maybe even redefine what success might look like on social media. So first, I want to talk about how you should be thinking about social, because again, as things change, I've noticed that a lot of business owners are holding on to sort of old ideas of what social media looks like. And that's not our fault, because I think, again, this anxiety, it's really drilled into us that there's this big opportunity that maybe we're missing out on, and we're not really sure what we should be doing. So the first point that I really want you to consider, that I know is going to seem controversial, but you do not have to be on social media. And more specifically, you do not have to be on every single social media. We know as business owners that there's opportunity everywhere. Every day there's a new industry or a new platform or a new subscription model or a new something that we could be using to make money. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be doing all of those. So I just want to start outright with saying that you do not have to be on social media, okay? You should be on social media in almost all cases, and I'm going to tell you why. But again, consider that no social media is better than bad social media, okay? And the reason that that is true is that now we live in an omni-channel world, which basically means that anywhere your customers interact with you, they are going to see that as being part of your brand. So if they go into your store and they have a great interaction with your customers, but then they email you and they have a bad interaction, those things are all going to be equally weighted in the mind of your customer. So they're going to think about all of those things when they think about your brand. They're not just going to think about, either the online or the offline. They're going to think about both of those things together. So when you're doing anything, including social media, it has to be up to a level of quality and professionalism that is right for your brand and that you're proud of, okay? But that isn't to induce anxiety, because that's not at all my goal, but it is just to say, to sort of take that weight off your shoulders and say that you should only be on social media if it contributes to your business goals, which seems a little bit obvious. And maybe you're sitting there saying, yes, my business goal is to make more money, is to find more customers. So of course I should be on social media. But we really want to be thinking about how social media works and about how it can work for us, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about over these next slides and over this next hour and a half. So let's look at those opportunities. What are the goals that we can use social media for that are going to be beneficial for us? The first one, the most important one, the one that I think matters to most people here, is that you can capture and convert more of your local customers, okay? So what does that mean? It means essentially the people who are already looking for you, the people who are already in the pool of people who would be obvious customers for you. It allows you to get in touch with, it allows you to convert more of those people into customers. The second opportunity, obviously, is the one that I think most people treat social media as if it is the primary opportunity, as if the reason that we would be on social media is to expand our audience online, to start selling in different countries, with different audiences, with all these people that we don't know. And we're going to get 10 million followers on whatever platform, and it's going to completely transform our business. While this is possible, I don't know if this is a worthwhile pursuit or a worthwhile goal for most businesses, because for most of us, what we really want is to use social media as a supplement for the things that we already do well, okay? So we could spend our time, especially those of us who don't have staff or are not hiring for these roles, we're doing it ourselves, or existing staff members that we have are doing it. We could spend our time learning a new skill, which is audience building online, which is incredibly different and is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Or we could use social media intelligently to augment, to improve the things that we're already doing in our day-to-day business, to improve the things that already make us good. And that's how I would advise most people, probably everyone watching this, to use social media. And that's how I advise all my customers to use it as well. So for most small businesses, the best social media strategy really is to be there when your customers are looking for you, okay? So being online as a means to being discoverable. And this is so important because we know that our local customers discover us in our local community. That is, of course, where most of our customers come from. If we're a Main Street business, people walk by or they get recommended, by word of mouth. And so it's important when people are looking for us, when people are on Google Maps, for example, that they're able to find us and say, oh yeah, what is the name of that clothing store there on Main Street? Or that, whatever store, whatever industry you are in, to be findable is a very important part of being online, perhaps the most important and the most useful part. So when we're talking about capturing and converting these customers that are already looking for us, here is how I want you to think about it, okay? Local customers, what they need from us most of all when they're looking for us online is information. And that information can be divided into two things, okay? There's the vital information, things like location, hours, etc. This is the primary reason really that people are going to be looking for us online. Again, using things like Google Maps or even using Facebook or something like that, is people are looking for specific information about our store. Where is that store located again? Oh, you said there was a really good store there on Queen Street. What was that store called? So they're looking for our location, our hours, the name of the store, what store we are. Maybe they heard of us or they drove by us and they go, oh, I want to know what store that is. But then there's also preference information, okay? And this is more specific. It's what products do you sell? So if I drove by your store and I said, oh, there's a knitting store, that looks really interesting. Oh, but do they have the needles that I'm looking for? I don't know that, until I look up that information. And if I look up that information, if that's the information that is stopping me from becoming a customer, if I'm saying, oh, I saw that store, it looked nice, but I don't know if they have the needles that I'm looking for, the knitting needles, and there's no way online to find out that information, to find out whether you do or you do not. In most cases, as a customer, it's much easier for me to just not go into your store. For me to go into your store is a lot of effort. Am I really going to go into your store, hoping that you have the knitting needles that I'm looking for, or the bicycle that I'm looking for, or the vegetable that I'm looking for, or whatever it might be, and then get there and realize that you don't? That's a lot of risk for me. I can just as easily go online to Amazon and buy something there where I can see the products, where I know what exists in the inventory, okay? Then there's things like design. These, again, are more nuanced. It's, what does your store look like? Is your store a store for people like me? Maybe I'm looking at a furniture store, but I'm looking for very specific furniture. I'm looking for, Norwegian furniture, or I'm looking for mid-century modern furniture. Do I know that this is the kind of store that you are? What is the environment like in there? Is it very communal? Does it look like somebody's going to approach me the moment I walk in? Or does it look very laid back? Oh, maybe there's a coffee shop in there. I didn't notice that. So all of these things that we actually use to make decisions on whether or not to actually shop at a retail location. And I know, of course, these preferences seem more abstract, but this is actually how a lot of people make purchasing decisions. I know for myself, that's how I make purchasing decisions. A lot of it is, I'll see a store, I'll hear about a store, and then I'll look them up and I'll go, does it seem like the kind of store for me? Yes or no? And so this is a big opportunity for you to actually get new customers or to bring old customers back by making that information very easily accessible online. So this information always needs to be accurate and up to date. This is why things like Google My Business are so important, for example. This is what websites used to be like, People also need to be able to contact you, because a really large falling off point between people, thinking about becoming our customers and actually converting as a customer, again, is this knowledge gap. They need to be able to contact you and say, hey, you're a bicycle shop. I'm looking for this specific wheel and I need it by tomorrow. Do you have it? If people can't contact you, they will just go to another store that they can contact, okay? So you need to have accurate information. This information needs to be easily accessible to people, and they need to be able to contact you, okay? So these are three sort of separate problems, separate channels previously, but what social media does is it conglomerates those, okay? So it brings all of those things together. It has information that's easy to update, and it makes it easy for people to contact you. So social media really is the easiest and cheapest way to do all of these things. So you can do Google My Business, of course, but then even when it comes to Google My Business, I had an experience the other day, where I wanted to take my parents out for lunch, and we were looking, and it was a holiday, and, we were in a new town, so we didn't really know what the restaurants were. And then the restaurant on Google My Business said, we're open today. Great. So we went there and they weren't actually open. So they lost us as a customer because of their inability to keep that information updated. So that's just a small example of where those failures come in and how you can lose customers that way. But on the other hand, if that restaurant had a social media account and they just had a small post that said, or an Instagram story or a Facebook post that said, we're closed today because of the holiday, then I would obviously know the information that I'm looking for. I wouldn't have to waste my time. And I would feel much better about that business because I would go, oh, that restaurant actually looked really nice. Maybe I'll go another time when they are open. So often the role of social media, or at least the role that social media should play in most of our lives, is replacing what was a more formal website before that is now social media. So if you remember sort of the arc of the internet, this is really what Facebook pages were a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Your Facebook page was really this, you had your hours, you had your updates, you had a way to broadcast to everyone. And increasingly, this is becoming places like Instagram, searchable things where it's much easier to find that information. So the way that you want to think about your social media page in this context, and again, this social media page can be on any platform, but it should be on one of the ones that is searchable. So, Instagram for most people is really going to be the quickest and easiest way to do this. But you want to treat it as free advertising, obviously, because it is. It's a common place where people are going to walk around, just like, if you were able to advertise for free on every signpost or billboard in your community, it would be very advantageous to you. This is the exact same thing. And you want to treat it as an extension of your in-store experience. And what I mean by that, again, using this holiday example, is in your store experience, you have the hours, or you should have the hours on your door. And it'll say, these are the hours that we're open, and we're closed on these days for the long weekend or for the holiday, or because we're going away to Muskoka for the summer or whatever it might be, okay? But you would have that information. And this is the same way you should be treating social media, using it as an extension of your storefront and sharing that same information there. And again, why is this important? Because your customers will also treat your store, your social media as an extension of your in-store experience. It's that multi-channel thing that we talked about before. So for better or for worse, your customers will look at your social media. They'll look at your Facebook. They'll look at your Instagram. They'll look at your Twitter. They will look at whatever social media you do decide to have, and they will use that to judge the quality of your product, the quality of your experience. They will use that to decide whether or not they want to be your customers. And again, this is not pressure. This is an opportunity, because if we do things simply, if we do things the same way and with the same amount of care and with the same amount of pride that we do in our in-store experience, then our customers online are going to have a great similar experience online. So we're going to use it also. I think this is an underutilized thing, but using it, your social media presence, as an opportunity to bring customers into the store. Again, a lot of the narrative around social media in the past has really been about mass distribution, thinking internationally, thinking outside of your community, thinking about how to get this new audience that wasn't available to you before. Obviously, this international audience, you can sell anywhere, you can use e-commerce, it can be whatever you want it to be. But what I would encourage you to do, and what I increasingly see work for my customers, is to use it as an opportunity to bring customers in store. If you have spent 15 years developing your in-store experience, if you've spent 10 years, 5 years, working on your store, making it as good as it can be, hiring the best team that you can, really refining this skill, why would you spend that same amount of time doing that online, where you could actually use your social media as an opportunity to get people onto your home turf, your home playing field, where you're comfortable, where you are in control of the experience, and most importantly, where you can convert. Because for most of us, we are very comfortable in our in-store experience. We know how to talk to customers. We know when to approach them. We know when not to approach them. We know how to recommend things to them. We know how to close deals in our own store, right? So if we're thinking about what is the most beneficial use of social media, in most cases, for most businesses, the most beneficial use is as a means to get customers into our store where we can convert them with confidence, where we can give them this 10 out of 10 curated experience that we've built. So how do we actually do that? Well, that can be as simple as creating offers on social media that are only available to your social media followers. You can do limited time offers. Let's say you're on Instagram. You can do an Instagram story that says, hey, if you come in between now and Friday and tell us the secret code, and the secret code is, I don't know, November or Halloween or, American Thanksgiving or whatever you want it to be, then we will give you a discount. So, using your social media as a way to funnel people into an experience that you can control is an extremely important and extremely valuable tool that I think is underutilized when it comes to Main Street businesses. So then let's talk about the other use of social media, which is expanding your audience. Okay, so this again is the one that has been talked about. This is the promise that has been made over the last decade or so, that if you're a small business, you can go on social media and you'll find all these new customers that you couldn't have possibly had access to before, who live all over the world, and you can, they can buy your Ontario cheese from Germany or whatever it might be, okay? Which is great, but is not great for all of us. It's not great for everyone. And for a lot of us, we don't actually want that responsibility. So I think there is this conversation when it comes to social media about expansion for expansion's sake. Wouldn't it be great to have 5 million followers all over the world? Would it be great? I don't know. I think it would be great to have, 1,000 really dedicated followers that live within 10 kilometers of my store, that when I say, hey, come down to my store, I'm having a sale, or hey, I have new product, or hey, I'm running this event, that those people, come down. So I'm not saying that it's not great to get a huge audience, and that if you can, genuinely get 10 million followers, that you shouldn't do it, because of course you should. I'm just saying a lot of small businesses use that as a metric, as a goal, as something that they want to reach towards. And all I'm saying is just think about whether or not that's actually something that you care about, whether or not that's something that would materially change the way that your business operates, or the amount of sales that you make, or whatever the KPIs or the performance indicators that matter to you are, okay? So again, just don't get sucked into what other people are doing. Think about what matters to you. This is really, really important when it comes to social and when it comes to anything really in our business. So expanding your audience, I'm just going to have a sip of water, excuse me. So expanding your audience, or basically, using social media as a way to connect with tens and millions and billions of people out there, is great for businesses whose products work well for e-commerce. And I would argue for people whose e-commerce business is already working well. If your e-commerce business is already settled, if you already have all the moving parts worked out and now you want to expand because you're finding success with it, then this is a great tool, okay? But if you're new to e-commerce, if you haven't really worked it out, especially if you're transitioning from being a Main Street business to doing e-commerce, if you're not having, a comfortable experience, then maybe, building this massive international brand is not really going to be the thing that is best for you. It might make you a lot of money, but it might not make you happy, that kind of thing. One of the things that it can do for all businesses, whether, you're e-commerce or you're predominantly Main Street business, or you're exclusively a bricks and mortar store, is that expanding your audience eventually can allow you to build a reputation. So something that we need to think about when we're on the internet is not only do people use this as a source for information, as we talked about earlier, but this source of information exists forever, or at least as long as people use these platforms, okay? And this is a blessing and it is a curse. It is a blessing because it becomes an encyclopedia of information about our business. So if you do a video today about how you make your product, unless you change something about how you make your product in the next 2 years, that video can always exist and it can always be useful to you as a marketing tool or to your customers as a piece of information for as long as this platform exists. So when you are thinking about expanding your audience, one of the things that we are going to talk about is that it needs to appeal to a broader audience, okay? Which means that it isn't so specific about your store. When you are using social media in the way that we talked about before, in an informational way, that is in a one-to-one connection between you and your existing customers, or people that might be your existing customers, or people in your neighborhood, or people in your community, they're there because they care about your store specifically. The thing to be mindful of when we're thinking of expanding audiences, especially internationally, is that you being a store in the Parkdale neighborhood of Toronto, or in the Glebe neighborhood of Ottawa, doesn't actually mean anything to somebody who lives in Minnesota, or who lives in Mexico, or who lives anywhere that isn't actually your local environment. It might even not mean something to somebody who's living in British Columbia. They might go, I don't know where that is. That doesn't matter to me. Where that might be an essential part of our brand, people that have no connection to those places might not care. So not only do we have to say, okay, we're not just the best store for our audience in this geographical location, which is what most of us are banking on, but we have to be the most interesting store in our industry in the world, okay? Which is not impossible to do because you all, I'm sure, are wonderful, interesting people who are passionate about what you do. But again, it involves more investment. And that investment is not just investment of money, which is what people think about, but it's investment in time to actually build an audience on social media in the tens of thousands, in the millions, requires a large investment of time, of energy. If you're doing it yourself, that's very difficult. So it might even involve you, hiring somebody to help you with this, which brings us into the next point, which is that it's higher risk, but higher reward, okay? So you're investing time, you're investing money, you're investing mind share. As small business owners, we have so much to think about. If you're already worried about, breaking even or, how much product you should order or whatever it might be, do you really want or need to be worried about why your last TikTok got 10,000 views and the one before it got 10 million views? Is that really stress that you need in your life? It might be because you might be ready to expand. But if you are just getting online, for example, that might not be the smartest thing to put on your plate. But again, it's higher risk, but of course, higher reward. We have all heard stories, as we all know, of a brand that started posting on Pinterest, or started posting on Tumblr, or started posting on Instagram or on TikTok, especially, of course. And all of a sudden they blew up and now they're successful beyond their wildest dreams. This is a wonderful story, but probably, most of us have not built our business in this extravagant, explosive way. Probably what most of us have done is build our business slowly. Right. And that's the kind of growth that we are used to. That's the kind of growth that we're comfortable with, and probably is a strategy we should continue to use moving forward. So when we're talking about what content you should actually be creating, in terms of your content strategy, first, it's super important to remember that whatever platform you are choosing, and we're going to talk about platform very briefly in a moment, but whatever platform you're choosing, it is true that on all of these platforms that are popular today, the audiences, which is one very important part of the equation, and the algorithms, which, as you may be aware, is a massively important other part of the equation, probably more than 50% of the rest of the equation. These audiences and these algorithms both value the exact same thing, okay? And what they value is consistency. We as people find consistency a little bit boring. Doing the same thing every single day is a little bit boring. So the thing that you will be tempted to do if you commit to, doing social media content is that you will be tempted to be creative. Why? Because creativity is the opposite of boring. Creativity is exciting. Creativity gets us out of bed in the morning. Doing the exact same thing that we did yesterday, which is the exact same thing that we did last week, is not going to be exciting. It's not going to be creative. It's not going to, get us out of bed. But, this sort of dedication, this consistency really, really helps when it comes to connecting with and building an audience, okay? It helps our audiences because, while it may be boring for me to do the same thing every single day, I love educating small business owners like you, but if I had to be like a Broadway, actor and talk to you about how you can, use social media to your benefit, if I had to do this every single day, 7 days a week, multiple times a day, I would probably get bored by this. But, that's not what I'm doing. So it feels creative and it feels exciting. But on the other hand, if I discover a new YouTube channel, for example, or a new Instagram channel, for example, what I am there for is to watch 7,000 versions of the exact same thing. You know that this is true. This is how we all are. When it's our own things, we go, oh, diversity is more exciting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But think about restaurants even. If we go to a restaurant, we are usually going because we had one thing there that we really enjoyed and we want to eat it again. With the rare exception of some restaurants, who do a different menu every night. If you went to your favorite restaurant and all of a sudden, the menu was entirely different and none of the things that you enjoyed last time were there, and you said, oh, well, where's that thing that I wanted? I just brought all my friends here because I loved it so much. And the chef went, it's boring for me. Actually, I've decided to do something more creative. You would be upset. You probably wouldn't go to that restaurant again. And in the same way, if you watch a YouTube video that you really, really love, and you go look at the YouTube channel and you go, wow, this is amazing. I could spend hours watching this. And you go to the YouTube channel and every single video is completely different about a different topic. It's a different style. It's even a different person in every video. You would go, this doesn't make sense. I can't connect to that. So what audiences and algorithms both want is predictability. They want consistency. And they want consistency in format and in frequency, okay? So format meaning, again, if we're doing videos that is reviewing, let's say we're a grocer and for some reason, or let's say we're a cheese shop, actually, more specific example, and we're reviewing every cheese in the universe, and that's our social media strategy, okay? Not every cheese in the universe, every cheese in our store. We should use a similar format every single time. So camera in the same place, we do it out of 5 stars, we have a specific setup, we eat it with the same thing every time, the same little cracker, because that's what allows it to be understandable to the audience. If every time we were reviewing a different cheese, we did it in a different place, and one time I ate it with a plain cracker, and next time I ate it with a fancy cracker, and one time I rated it on 5 stars, and the next time I rated it on 26 stars, that would be a confusing experience. Similarly, frequency is what makes us reliable. So if I am somebody that discovers your content and I want to watch 40,000 videos in a row, I need to know when there's going to be a next one. Is there going to be a next one tomorrow? Is there going to be a next one, next week? Frequency generally is a big question for business owners. How often should I be posting? We're going to talk about how you can sort of dictate that. But generally, the answer is always going to be, it should be as often as you can create good, worthwhile content that your customers are going to enjoy. Okay, so frequency should be dictated around quality. So how often can you deliver a consistently good product? So again, audiences are built around predictability. I've already talked about that point. So what you should do, because audiences are built around predictability, when you're deciding, what should I be posting on let's say Instagram, okay? You decide that the platform for you is going to be Instagram. You're saying, what should I post on Instagram? Your initial instinct might be to try everything that everyone else is doing and go, okay, what's going to work? What you should do, what my advice to you is decide on one piece of content to create, okay? Decide on one single piece of content that you could create every week or every day or every 3 days for the rest of your life, okay? How are we going to do that? Because that I know already sounds A, boring, and it sounds B, challenging. But if you can work out what that one piece of content that works for your business is, A, it'll be extremely easy to continually create, which is going to make it very easy to be consistent. And again, audiences and algorithms both value consistency. And it'll be much easier to build an audience, okay? And it'll also be much easier to scale. And it'll make social media a stress-free experience for you. So how do we decide on what that one piece of content to create is, okay? And this right here is the strategy. The strategy that you should have, that I recommend every business should have when they're working out what to do on social media, is decide on one piece of content to create. So how do we decide on that one piece of content? Here are some rules, okay? And here is how I'm going to help you easily get to what that piece of content is. And this works, I promise you, for anybody in every single industry. The content should not be high concept, okay? So there is a lot of high concept stuff out there on the internet that people very much enjoy. There are things like hot ones, okay? If you don't know what that is, that's okay. I'm about to explain it. Basically what this is a interview show where celebrities are interviewed while eating hot wings. Okay, this is extremely high concept. This is very involved. Whoever thought of this, this grand idea. Is it a great idea? Yes. Should it be your idea? No. Why? Because as a small business owner, the best way to create content, and by best, I mean the one that's going to involve the least time, the least investment, and is most likely going to lead to success, is content that is based around something that you already do. Okay? And now this is so essential to understand that I'm going to spend some time explaining this. What do I mean by creating content around something that you already do? What I mean is that you should look at the things that you already have to be consistent about in your business, okay? And I can tell you there are some things that are consistent in almost every business. If you are a product business, one thing that you consistently have to do is order new product. That product arrives and you have to unpack that product. If your customer is interested in your industry, or if they're interested in your store, to you, let's say you own a sneaker store, unpacking 100 pairs of sneakers might be the most boring thing that you do all day. But to your customers who do not unpack 100 different pairs of sneakers every day, this might be like Christmas morning for them, okay? So this is what I mean. Again, if you are someone in a service industry, let's say, you can do anything. You can clean windows. If you clean windows, or you cut lawns, or you clean swimming pools, or you unclog drains, or whatever it is that you do, to you, because you do this every single day, this might be the most boring thing that you can imagine. And to everyone in your industry, it is also probably the most boring thing that you can imagine. But that is because you see this all day, because it is your job. To people who don't know how to clean a carpet, or how cleaning windows works, or to people that don't cut lawns often, or to people that, are hiring you you're a locksmith and they're hiring you to unlock their doors, to people that don't know how this works, this could be so entertaining, okay? So what is something that you already do, that you already have to do, that you can document? And document is going to be a word that we talk about a lot. And all document means is turning a camera on. You can turn that camera on and take a photo. You can turn that camera on and take a video. And every single platform that we use today uses both of those both of those mediums. Okay. So what is something that you're already doing? And I know I'm going over and over in this, but because this is the most essential part to understand. What is something that you're already doing in your business? Something that you have to be consistent about. Okay. Something that you can document. And maybe for some reason, you are a store where, sure, maybe you order stock, but for some reason, it is actually the most boring thing. Everyone who watches these videos goes, this is the most boring video I've ever watched. Please stop posting this. Okay. If that happens, what is something else that you already do? Let's say you are a clothing store. Something that you do probably all the time is recommend, clothing to your customers based on a number of criteria, based on their personal taste, based on their body type, based on their hair color, based on all of these sort of things. That's something that you already do. You're already recommending clothing to people. So you could, when you are doing that, take pictures of it, film it, etc., and use that as your content. Again, so it can be very direct, or you can be outside of the box and say, reviewing books, if you're a bookstore, is something I already do. When I order the books, I read them, and then I have an opinion about them. Whatever you are currently doing already, that is probably what is going to be interesting to people. That is probably the one piece of content that you should be creating, okay? There's a bunch of ideas in there, and hopefully you can already start seeing what it is that you do that you can start using as inspiration for your one piece of content. Another way to think about it is this idea of Ikigai, which is like, what is the intersection between what you have to do and what your audience is interested in? Okay. So maybe you have to do the accounting, and that's not very interesting. But maybe cleaning the products is very interesting to people, or whatever it might be. Okay. So think about things that you already have to do, and then think about opportunities to create content from that. The big question when you are thinking about what you should be making on social media, or more importantly, whether or not you should be making something, because you can come up with a whole bunch of ideas. You can look at what other people are doing and say, oh, maybe we should do what they're doing, create YouTube videos about whatever, right? When you're trying to decide what you should or shouldn't be doing, a question you should ask yourself, and this is something that all people should know, is what is your core value proposition? Okay. So what is it that you actually provide to your customers? What are your customers there for? So again, if you are in a clothing store, for example, maybe what your customers value most is your individual style. Maybe what they value most is literally your opinion on what looks good and doesn't look good. If what these people value is your individual opinion, then the thing that you should, you make content about is your individual opinion. This is what makes you unique to your customers. This is why your customers come to you versus to somebody else, okay? If, let's say, you are a running store and your value proposition is that you are the only running store in Windsor, Ontario that stocks every single running brand from around the world, then that also is something you can create content about. So do you see how you can take that core value proposition and just see, when you magnify that, when you extrapolate that, when you blow that up a little bit, what would the right content for that value proposition be? So again, in the example of the running store, if you have all these brands, maybe once a week, you create a video or you create a piece of content that is, hey, here's this new running brand that we discovered from Kenya, and here's why we decided to stock it in the store. And the next week you go, here's this running brand from Austria, and here's why we decided to stock it in the store. So you can create this one piece of content around the value proposition that makes you unique, the thing that your customers already come to your store for. Okay, so getting into the question of what are we actually creating, and then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of examples of what we can create based on what we've just talked about. But let's talk a little bit about Medium, okay? Because we've talked about working out what that piece of, what that one piece of content that you should be creating is. But where are we going to post it, basically, is the question that we're asking when we're talking about Medium. So there's a lot of platforms in 2022, and we want to be posting in the right place, because otherwise we're wasting our time. We're wasting the opportunity to connect with the people that might actually become our customers. So the questions that we're going to ask around Medium, what platforms are your customers on? This is probably the number one question, okay? You should know this based on, a number of things, one of which is demographics. You know the demographics of your customers. If your customers are primarily older folks, then there's platforms that are going to be better for them, and there's platforms that are going to be worse if you're trying to talk to that audience, okay? If your platform is 13-year-olds, there are platforms that are going to be better to talk to 13-year-olds than, there are to, talk to 50-year-olds, okay? So you have to consider whether you're trying to maintain or expand your audience. Again, we've talked about this. Are you being there when your audience is looking for you? Or are you trying to attract an international audience or trying to raise a lot more awareness? Because this, again, is making the difference on what platforms you should be in. Again, we're going to talk about the platforms in about 1 second. What are you comfortable doing? This is a really, really important question in 2020, because the reality is that most platforms in 2022, sorry, I realized I just said 2020, but I meant 2022. Most platforms in 2022 are optimized for video. Video right now is what works, okay? And it is what most platforms want you to be posting. It is what they're going to reward. So are you comfortable posting video? If not, that's okay. But what are you comfortable posting? Are you comfortable posting images? Then you can be on Instagram, then you can be on Pinterest, then you can be on Tumblr. You could even theoretically be on Facebook if you're posting videos. If you are comfortable being on video, if you're comfortable on camera, or you have access to technology that allows you to create videos that you don't have to be in, which we all have access to now, then you can post on TikTok. If you have access to people, TikTok and Instagram. If you have access to people that know how to create high quality videos, then you can be on YouTube. So these are all things that are really going to dictate where we should be posting. I know that I just said that if you can post high quality videos that you should be on YouTube, but aside from that exception, which I do believe is an exception, on most platforms, especially when it comes to video, production quality simply doesn't matter anymore. I still think on the Instagrams, on the Pinterests, on the Tumblrs, the aesthetics of a photo still matters, but we have reached this point in 2022 when the aesthetic of a video does not matter at all, okay? Not even one little bit. So if you're posting on Instagram or you're posting on TikTok, and I'm mentioning these a lot because these are the two platforms that are just exploding right now in terms of audience attention, production quality does not matter. It really doesn't matter. Nobody is going to care. I don't know if anybody here has spent much time on TikTok, but if you haven't, it is a magical place where people who have 40 million views, post a video that is in their bedroom with the bed not made, okay? So the bar is so low now in a really positive and accepting way. So production quality doesn't matter. You don't really need any skills to be on these platforms. So when we're thinking about a format, which again is the thing that's going to make us consistent, what we want to do is do some research, okay? So we want to look at content that is in other industries. Now, as we said at the beginning, we all consume content. That is the majority of what we do, okay? Even this presentation I'm giving right now is content. So if you are somebody that also gives presentations, you look at this and you go, wow, what can I do in my industry? What can I take from this? What did I enjoy? What didn't I enjoy? This is a habit that I want you to get into when you are consuming content. And by that, I mean when you are scrolling Instagram, when you are scrolling TikTok, when you are watching YouTube videos, when you are, on Facebook, when you are served a piece of content, look at it and think about whether or not you enjoy it, and then think about why, okay? And especially do this in your own industry. Every single one of us have competitors creating content in our industry currently. It does not matter what industry you're in. I promise you, there is somebody on the internet who is building an audience based around content in your industry. It can be literally anything. I promise you, I have seen things on YouTube that blow the mind. If you are an antique bookseller, there's somebody who is, has 1 million subscribers selling antique books. If you're a painting restorer, same thing. If you're a shoe repair person, same thing. Whatever it is that you do, if you're a butcher, if you're a baker, if you're a candlestick maker, I promise you, there is somebody who has an audience based on what you're doing, okay? Find those people, look at their content, whether that's videos, whether that's images, whether that's text posts, whatever it is, look at their content and allow yourself to feel pure emotion, okay? If you hate what they're doing, that's okay to feel, but work out, why do you hate it? Why do you hate it? Is it because they talk about the wrong thing? Is it because they have a different opinion than you about an important point of the industry? What is it? Are they misleading people? Whatever it is, take note of that. Take note of what you don't enjoy, what you do enjoy, and use that to dictate your own format, okay? What can you copy or borrow? This is extremely important. So if you see a format on YouTube, for example, which is, special effects artist reacts to Hollywood blockbusters. I just made that title up, but I can almost guarantee that's a real YouTube video. So you can look at that format and go, okay, I'm not a special effects expert, but could I use that format in my industry? So maybe I'm a fashion expert and I can look at, the Emmys or the Tonys or the Golden Globes or the Met Gala, and I can react to the outfits in there, and I can say what I like, what I don't like. So there's all these ideas that exist out there currently, so we don't have to think about new ones. So think about what you can copy or you can borrow. And then, super important, again, to most of us small business owners who don't have much additional time, what content is going to require the least additional effort? And again, we're going to talk about documentation in a second, showing you examples, because this is going to be the correct strategy for most people. How can you do things that you are already doing, that you already have to do, and create content out of that? I will show you how right after we talk about the platform. Sorry, I forgot this slide was here. So platforms, based on your goals, if you are doing maintenance, so if you are trying to be findable, if you're trying to keep in touch with your customers, Facebook and Instagram is really the two places that you're going to want to do that. Facebook, Instagram, and I would say Google My Business, specifically Google Maps, etc. Although I don't know if we consider that a social network exactly, but that's where you want to be doing that. That's going to be the most sustainable. It's going to be the most attainable. That's going to be where most people are looking for that information. If you're trying to grow, you want to be on Instagram. You want to be on TikTok. If you can be on TikTok, be on TikTok. We'll talk about some ideas in a moment. But if that's a thing that works for you and you want to grow, TikTok is the place to grow right now. It just outstrips everything else that's ever existed. And YouTube, is the second biggest search platform in the world, in the English world, sorry. And there's massive opportunity there, okay? The thing about all of these platforms is that they require constant creation. You have seen this, we are all aware of this. The amount of content that is being creating every day on all of these platforms is just astronomical. So whatever platform we're choosing, we do have to think about how we can be creating consistently. We don't have to be constantly creating, but we do have to be creating consistently. And as I've said, unfortunately, perhaps for some that don't feel comfortable with it, but video is always going to be the most effective on all of these platforms. That is certainly just the way that the world is going. And I think this is a trend that's going to continue into the future. So let's talk about documenting, which again is the creation strategy that I would advise to everybody. I think it's what everyone can use. When you're thinking about documentation, which again just means doing the things that you're already doing and then turning a camera on. This is all we're talking about. It's very, very simple. We want to be thinking about what can you show your customers that is most likely to convert them, okay? And that sounds like a complicated question, but it actually is really, really simple. Allow me to explain. I want you to practically think about what is the thing that converts your customers most often in your store, okay? And maybe think about this like an infomercial. What is the thing that you would do in an infomercial or that you would do in your store that immediately converts the most customers? So maybe if you own a flower shop, for example, the thing that converts the most customers is allowing your customers to smell the flowers. Maybe that's what it is. If you own a grocery store, maybe the thing that converts customers most is you getting excited and you telling them, "Ooh, can you imagine roasting these mushrooms and then making a gravy and whatever?" So maybe, recipe recommendations is what excites people most. Maybe, in that sort of infomercial style, maybe you have a product where showing people the before and after is the thing that converts people most consistently. So you say, I'm really the best rug cleaner in Ontario, and people say, "Oh, I don't believe that." And then you show them, the process of cleaning a rug. And once they see you clean a rug, they go, "Wow, actually, I believe you." Okay. So think about what that one sort of magic trick is that you can use and that you do use to convert most customers. And think about using that as an idea for your content, okay? So again, think about what can you show customers that is most likely to convert them. And here are some ideas that I really like from different platforms, okay? And these ideas in here should be ones that everyone can copy and ones that apply to every business and industry. So here is some content that is specifically based on documentation. This is the upper tier of documentation. So this is the most beautiful version of it. So these are people who are really putting a lot of care into it, but this is also a good example of how easy it can be. And I'll run you through each one of these and tell you why I think that they're so good. So on the left here, we have a post from one of my favorite retail stores in the world, In Vintage We Trust, in Toronto. And this, I think, is a really good idea. What they do is every week they put out new clothing. And so every week they take a picture of all the new clothes that they have. Why is it genius? Because they already have to fold the clothing before they put it out. So when they are folding the clothing, all they do is just take a picture of all of the clothes together. They're not doing anything new. They're not doing anything additional. They're doing what they already have to do, which is put the clothes on display. And all they're doing is they're taking a picture. Why is this a good idea? Okay. If we think about all the things that we've talked about, why is this a good idea? It is a good idea, A, because they are already doing this and they're just documenting, but B, because they're providing information that would convert a customer. What do I mean by that? At the very beginning, we talked about how online customers are predominantly looking for information. Information is the thing that allows them to decide whether they will or will not become our customer. A very important piece of information is, what do you have in your store? What can I buy? And this is the way that customers are always thinking. What is in it for me? How do I get something out of this? What do I get out of this? And so if I'm seeing this post on the left, I can see all the things that are in the store. And that does two things. Maybe I will see a shirt there that I like, and I will go into the store to buy it. But I also might go, these people have a lot of diversity in the clothing that they have. I like the way that a lot of these things look. Maybe I should go into the store and see what else there is. Okay. So this is performing a lot of different tasks all at once. In the middle here, we have this exact same concept, but in a different business. This is from a magazine store called Under the Cover. And what they do is when they stock a new magazine, they take a picture of the magazine. I know that this sounds incredibly simple, but think about how effective this is. So many of us labor over what we should be posting on social media. So many of us have teams dedicated to saying, what should we be posting on social media? How can we take advantage of trends? And there are people that are acquiring customers simply by saying, we have this product in store, come and get it. That is really the call to action here. And it's providing endless content because as a store, you are perpetually having to stock new items or restock old items, or stock is constantly coming in. So this is just a way of taking something that you're already doing, i.e. stocking products, and using it as a means to create content that is going to bring customers in. What this is also doing is allowing people who are not immediately your customers, but who are interested in your industry to build a reputation for you. So maybe I'm not from your city, but if you're constantly posting things that I like in an industry that I like, maybe one day when I come to your city, I will become a customer. And this has happened to me so many times. I will see a store in another city, and then I will like it. I'll follow them on Instagram. I'll follow them on TikTok. I'll follow them wherever I follow people. I'll watch their YouTube videos. And then one day when I'm in their city, I will go and buy from that store. On the right, we have the exact same thing, just with food. Okay. This salad looks delicious to me. And why that matters is because if you are a restaurant, or you are a grocer, or you are anybody that sells consumables, people want to know how they can benefit. Again, that's what this entire slide is about. So if you are saying, we have this salad, if you come into our restaurant tonight, you can eat this salad, and that is an extremely effective way to A, create content, because at a restaurant, you already have to make the salad, and B, you're populating your social media feed. This is going to exist up here forever. So anytime that someone goes to your social media feed, they have a history of all the salads you have ever made or all the meals you've ever made in the store. It's a source of information that allows them to make a decision about whether or not they would like to become your customer. So this is an extremely effective strategy that anybody can use. And if you do not see yourself on that slide, maybe you see yourself on this slide. Here's something that we all have to do as businesses, and that is make decisions, okay? So this brand is called Minted. It's in New York. So this is the CEO of the brand, and basically what he does is he makes decisions about what clothes to make or what clothes not to make, or, he shows the samples, et cetera, but he does that all in public. So this is just an example. This is something that we all have to do, is make decisions in our business, okay? So maybe we have, and I had a question there that I will answer in a minute, but maybe we have decisions to make, just like this person. If you're a clothing store, for example, you have to make decisions about what clothes to stock, what clothes not to stock. What do you think is going to be a big trend next year? What is a product that you're working on? What do the prototypes look like? So even if you're not constantly having new product in, you're constantly making decisions. Again, for most of us, this seems dead boring to us. For me, or for you, or for anyone to make a decision about, what should I write on the sign outside the store that brings customers in, To us, that seems like a really boring daily decision. But in that thing that we have to do every single day that we're already doing is an opportunity to interact with our audience. So instead of just waking up every morning and writing the sign, you can go on social media and say, hey, here's 2 options of what we can write on the sign today. What do you like more? So it's a way that you can get people involved and a way that you can create content based on things that you already have to do every single day. So this is just an example. All of this company's content is this. It is literally just people making decisions. And you can see here that it's in reaction to customers' comments. So here on the left, we have a customer asking about a specific product, a ring. And then they just make a piece of content that is saying, hey, here's the rings. Amazing. Okay. So the next one is hoodies. Then they just make a piece of content saying, here's the hoodies. So this is a really simple method that we can all follow. It doesn't have to be about our own products. It could be about anything. If we are renovating the store, if we are deciding, how many of a product to order, we can, sort of make all of these decisions public, because these are going to be interesting to people who are in our industry. So here's another example. Again, if somehow you have looked at all these slides and said, I still don't see a way for my business to do this, what is an opportunity that I can do? Sorry, I'm just reading the comments there. I will get to all of these at the end. So maybe you are a service business that does things that have a before and after. If you have before and afters in your business, if somebody comes in one state and leaves in another state, this is an incredibly effective tool for a number of reasons. One, again, because it's documentation. If what you do is clean carpets, which is this example here, this is taken from YouTube, I believe. If what you do is clean carpets, your job is something that you can make content out of every single day. Every day, if you are a carpet cleaner, you're cleaning carpets. So that's an infinite amount. That's 365 days in a year of videos that you could be making, of Instagram posts that you could be making, of TikToks that you could be making, okay? So before and afters are amazing. And before and afters don't have to be about a physical product. They could be about anything. You could be a service, that you're a chiropractor. I mean, that's a huge industry. That is a huge category in content. You could be literally anything. If you are a swimming coach, you could show people strokes before and after. If you are a therapist, you could show, the progress that people have made. If you're a speech therapist, for example. So there's all these opportunities to show before and afters. And before and afters are great, A, because they're an opportunity for documentation. We already have to be doing these things. But B, because they allow people to see our expertise. It allows us to build confidence in the thing that we actually do day in and day out. And then the example on the right is an example I've used before, but it's maybe the most pure example of documentation. It's a company called Texas Bee Works, and all they do is every time they go on a site to remove bees, their bee removal service, every time they go to remove bees, they just film themselves removing bees. This is their entire strategy, okay? They film themselves removing bees. As you can see over there, this video specifically has 2.3 million likes. It has so many more views than that, but it has 2.3 million likes of people just watching somebody do the job that they are doing, okay? So when you are posting on social media, if you're doing any of these things, and again, probably the most accessible thing for all of us is just documenting exactly what it is that we are doing. Whether it's like those first stores who are just showing the stock that we have in, whether you're doing before and afters, or whether you're actually filming or doing photography of you providing a service, the thing that we have to be very mindful of is being social, okay? So when people interact with us on social media, we have to treat this as a very serious and very important thing. The reason that we are on social media is to interact with and attract customers. We are on social media to be social, in essence. So when people are being social with you, be social back. This is another situation where we need to treat this as an extension of our store. If somebody came into your store and asked you a question and you ignored them, what would they do? They would leave the store, right? So any interaction that we get, we want to interact with those people. So we want to respond to any and all questions. We want to use follower interaction, as we saw in the previous example, use follower interaction and feedback to create new content. This is such a gift, especially at the beginning when we're working out what to create. It is such a gift to have feedback from followers, to have questions from followers. So we should use these feedback and questions to create content that our followers are going to enjoy. And how do we know that they're going to enjoy it? Because they have specifically requested it, okay? What you also want to do when you're on social media is authentically react to content that you enjoy. So it's not just about posting content, it's about being involved in a community. It's about, interacting as your brand and about having a personality. So go like things that you like. What do you actually like as your brand? What else are you interested in your industry? Don't only use it as an opportunity to, get more people to buy from you. Use it as an opportunity to connect with people and be authentic about that. So when it comes to widening your funnel, which again, once we started to have some success on social media, how do we attract more customers from all around the world? Which again is only going to apply to a small percentage of us, but it did feel important to mention how to do that if that is the stage that you're at. When it comes to widening your funnel, the customers in a wider funnel are going to be more interested in your niche and less interested in your store. And I touched on this earlier, but they're going to be less interested in the specifics of what do you have in your store right now, things that are geography based, in sales that you are having currently, because if they can't participate in it, they are not going to care, right? So if you are saying, it's winter right now, but actually all your customers that you are talking to online are in Australia where it's summer currently, this is going to get a little bit confusing and they're going to care much less about what is happening, right? So the conversion is not going to be as direct, again, because they're interested more in your industry than in your specific store. And because conversion is not going to be direct, the thing that we really want to do here when we're widening the funnel is use an opportunity to create community. Okay, we want to create community around the interests, around the niche that we exist in. So what does it look like when you widen your funnel? The example that I've used here is in running brands, okay? So if we were a specific store that was selling specific products, maybe we only carry 4 to 5 brands of running shoes, right? So if we're talking about our store and we're only posting content from our store, then we're only going to be showing these 4 to 5 brands because this is what customers can find there and this is what's going to convert people into customers, right? But if we are widening our funnel, if we're focused on community, if we're focused on the niche and the interest group instead of our own store or instead of our own location or instead of our own neighborhood, then what's going to happen is by necessity, we're going to have to start widening the number of things that we post about. So these are 2 different Instagram channels here on the left and on the right. But you can see on the left, what they've started to do is they've posted about things that are happening in the industry. So there was a run here. There was a marathon here. Look at the shoes that people are wearing at this marathon. Look at this new shoe that Nike released. And then you can also put in content that is personal to you. Look at the shoes that I wore running today. Look at this new, item that came out that we really like. So you can be less specific about your store and more broad about what you're interested in your industry. So it's essentially less selfish. And you're giving an opportunity for people that will never come into your store to connect with your brand, which matters, again, because a small percentage of those people will eventually come into your store. And it matters because you will attract a much larger audience by not being specific to location, by not being specific to only your brick and mortar store. And And that is really how you're going to build a really big audience if that's what you want to do. Again, it's extremely difficult to do that, but that is the way forward. Here's another more abstract example, again, in the running space, but just to show you another example, you wouldn't know it looking at this post on the right here. So these 6 posts, but this is an Instagram account that's run by a coffee shop. And what this coffee shop has done is they've created a running club in their local community, and they're using Instagram as a way to promote the running club. So why is this a good idea? Well, because there's a lot of people who both run and drink coffee. And a running club is something that is a generous thing to do, that you're giving essentially as a gift to people. You're saying you don't have to buy from our store. The only connection to our store is that we start our runs here. But of course, as we all know, if you start your runs at a coffee shop, the odds are pretty high that at the end of the run, a lot of people are going to buy coffee from that shop. But it's just thinking about how we can take something that is specific to our store and expand it out, widen the funnel, make it for other people and for our community, and not so much about us and about converting and about what products we have. Because as you can see here in this post, there is no coffee even in here. So when you're widening your funnel, you want to do the same thing. You want to look at your value proposition again and create an environment where anybody can join in and contribute. So again, let's use that same example. If people value you for your style, and that's why people come into your store, then you want to still focus on your style, but in a way that anybody anywhere can join in. It's not specific to your location. You need to evolve your content from narrow to broad. So again, in the example of the 2 stores that we showed, where they post content of all the items that they have in stock, maybe you would start to include items that you don't have in stock, just things in your industry that you like. That's a way to include much more people because it's not specifically based on what is in your store. And remember that it's not for your customers, it's for people like your customers. So if we were only creating content for our customers, it would be hyper-specific, hyper-local. If we know that all of our customers, are in Ontario and they're all celebrating Canada Day at the same time, or Victoria Day, or Labor Day, or any of these things, then we are creating for those customers. But if we are talking to an international audience, those things might not be as applicable or as important. So when we are creating community, when we are broadening this funnel, we need to think about what we are giving to them. And an easy way to think about that is, what can we give to them? We can give them community. So we can give them a place where they can interact with or find content that is, in line with what they like. So, we're curating the best running shoes from all over the world, the best music from all over the world, whatever it might be. We can give them information, so we can create educational content, a place for like-minded people to talk about skincare, or to talk about, recipes, or to talk about whatever. Or we give them events, which is the example that we showed with the running club, where we're saying, you don't actually have to be our customer. We're holding this event. We're holding movie nights. We're holding a running club. We're holding a games night, or whatever it might be. And everyone is invited. And then talking about converting. So if we have expanded this audience and we are getting into, bringing this big international audience, how are we going to bring them back into our ecosystem? This is important anytime that we're doing mass media. How are we going to bring them back? How are we going to actually turn these people into customers? So when it comes to this, we want to think about, what can we create for them in order to convert them? What can we create for them in order to bring them into the fold, to bring them into our store, to bring them into our e-commerce store, which is more likely when we're talking mass audience. A great way to do that is capture their emails. So think about ways that you can capture their emails, holding contests, doing newsletters, and all of those kind of things. But really, we only want to focus on expanding out our audience and converting this audience if our business is already thriving. Again, if we've already worked out all these steps before, if we're already feeling very successful, if we already are engaged in our local community, and now we think we're ready to take the next step and start engaging with more people from more places in the world. And then a final note, and then I will get into the questions with about 5 minutes left, is talking about quality content. So we've talked a lot about, how things have changed, but it's important to remember that quality content in 2022 means something very different than it did 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even 3 years ago. Okay. So that's why I put quality in quotation marks here. Quality content now is, content that is of a high quality in its essence. That has nothing to do with production value. So in 2022, production value doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, if you have the most expensive camera or whatever it is, because technology and cell phones specifically have sort of evened the playing field and have made it accessible for everyone to create, quality content, or content that's at an equal level of quality. And you have to remember, you have all the tools that the biggest creators do. So most people, when they're posting on Instagram, when they're posting on TikTok, when they're posting on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, again, is maybe the one exception, but they're using the exact same tools that we all have access to. Or even on, YouTube, increasingly, the tools that you need to create on those platforms are becoming more and more cost effective. More money doesn't always equals more opportunity. I think this is a mistake that a lot of business owners make, is they think, if I could spend $1,000 a month on ads or getting my content out to more people, that would increase my business. That doesn't necessarily pan out in the world of algorithms, because really it's about connecting with an audience. It's about creating content that people want to engage with and that people find interesting. So what I encourage you to do instead is focus on the core idea and deliver consistently. This is really what's going to make us successful, is boiling things down to their core. What do people like about this? Why would they care? Why would they be interested? And doing that over and over and over and over again. And when we are actually creating the content, what we want to do is either schedule time to do it. So again, if we're documenting, we want to say every Tuesday we unload our product and we redecorate the store. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m., we're going to do our Instagram video or our TikTok video or our Instagram post or our Pinterest content or whatever it might be. Or take time to batch create content. And this is more effective if you are doing that sort of personality-based content, where if you're reviewing the best outfits of the last, whatever event happened, you can do 3 at a time, and you can just sit there for one afternoon and go, okay, 3, next video, 3, next video, 3, next video, 3. So in summary, before we get into the questions with the last 5 minutes, you want to use social media primarily, and I hope that this is really a takeaway, to connect with customers that are looking for you. You want to create content around things that you were already doing in your business, which is so, so important. That idea of documentation, not reinventing the wheel of thinking about how you can connect with people, but realizing that what you're already doing are the things that are going to be interesting to your customers. Work out your value proposition and amplify it in your content. This is super important. Think about why people would want to buy from you versus your competitors, and create content that is based around that idea. Create simple content that will convert customers. Again, really just nailing this point home. Documentation, putting as little additional effort as possible into creating content is really going to be the key to success in 2022. Be social. So when people start interacting with your content, interact with them. This is what it's all about. This is what you would do if you were in your brick and mortar store. And this is what you need to be doing on the internet. And widen your funnel once you find success, and only once you find success. So the last 4 minutes, we're going to get into the questions. And these are some great questions, actually. So 2 very important questions here that I am going to answer live. Although I don't know how to use that functionality, so I will just give you the answer. So JD Thomas's question here: how do you suggest we handle negative comments on posts? My general advice would be not to, unless it's a genuine criticism of, a product or something that you've done. It depends on the nature of the negative comment. I think we all have to understand that there's a difference between, negativity for negativity's sake and for, feedback that's actually helpful. So if you post a product and somebody says, you post a product of a pair of workout pants or whatever, and somebody says, these pants look very low quality. I mean, you can answer them and explain why they're not, or, or you could delete that post. It really depends on the basis of the criticism, the basis of the negativity, whether you feel like it's a valid criticism, whether you feel like it's something that, is in good spirit, or if you feel like it's just, if it's somebody saying this product is too expensive or whatever it might be, I think it's important to think about whether or not there's an opportunity to connect with people that will be your customers. So if somebody thinks your product's too expensive, they're probably not going to be your product anyways, right? If they say this amount of money is too much for this product, what a ripoff, that's probably not somebody that's going to connect to your connect with your brand and become a customer. But if someone says, why does this product cost $100? That seems maybe like somebody who, if you actually explain it to them, they could be convinced and they could eventually become a customer. And then one more question I'm going to answer here before we log off. And again, thank you so much for coming. Let's look at this last question, which is, how can a product store do YouTube videos? I think there's so many opportunities for a product store to do videos. Some ideas off the very top of the head, you can do reviews. This is information that people are looking for. Obviously, it's risky because you are, these are products that you ideally stock all of them because you like them equally. But the reality is some products exist in different price points for different customers. So reviews, informational, like try-ons, testing, these sort of things. So showing people how things work, tutorials, essentially, walkthroughs. There's an entire industry on the internet of, tech reviews, showing people new features on phones, et cetera, et cetera. So this could be something that you could do for a product business. Reviews, comparisons, going through features. It depends on what product it is, but obviously showing uses of it. A great example of a product business that does very well is GoPro. Their YouTube strategy is to post GoPro videos. It's extremely effective because you see these GoPro videos and you go, wow, maybe I should buy a GoPro. So depending on what the product is, if it's clothes, you can do styling videos. You can do, whatever is going to be most applicable. Again, thinking about what that magic touch is, what that magic trick is that most often converts your customers, and think about how to turn that into a YouTube series or an idea for content. So that is going to bring us to the end of our time together. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I hope that you learned something useful, and I hope that you apply what you learned here today. Go out into the world and become a much more successful business. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.